Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Critical Engineer. This is a cosy fireside chat opportunity, and I'm delighted that in a second I'll be introducing an old friend and colleague, Ian Stuart. So in this short session, we wanted to discuss meta skills. What are they? What do they mean for the future? And how are we going to support young people with these skills? So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Ian Stuart. Hello, Ian. How are you?
Hi, Louise. Nice to see you again. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, so how have things been through the lockdown with you?
9 months sitting in my little cupboard, which is literally a little cupboard in my hallway, so I can close work away. Really important that you're able to step away from work. But yeah, it's been quite intense. It's intense is definitely the word.
And tell us a bit about your background. So I know you from when you worked at Islay High School and you were an educator, but your background is actually in the industry. You are an engineer by trade, and then you went to work back in education and then into the dizzy heights of industry. So tell us a bit more.
Yeah, it's a long and winding path. I served an apprenticeship as an electrical electronic engineer in Babcock's in Renfrew, if anybody knows Babcock's, building power stations, small stuff. I was working on the maintenance team on the computer side, X-ray equipment, that kind of stuff. But of course, in the late 80s, the world didn't need engineers, they said. They do now. I think that's the message that comes through. The world will change and rotate. I spent a year wondering what I was going to do. Would you believe, Louise, I was very shy then.
Don't believe it.
Quite quiet, and I went to an island called Iona off the west coast of Scotland, and that's where I love islands, has always been there. And I spent a year there working with polarized parts of society, able-bodied, disabled, young, old, List school and an Eton school building, and I learned that people, when they work on a common project, forget what separates them and find what puts them together. I think that's one of the critical things. That inspired me to become a teacher. So I became a teacher, designed a techie teacher. I've been designing a technology teacher for a number of years in the west of Scotland, and then on Islay, as you mentioned earlier, Islay High School. And Islay High School's done some remarkable things that people don't know about, and I think you should go and find out about it. One of Europe's earliest one-to-one programmes, all the rest of it. Seconded to the Scottish Government. I won't say the instruction I was given by the then Cabinet Secretary for Education, let's get some swear words in it. The idea was to try and move things forward. Worked with that. I then worked with an amazing company called Notosh, who gave design thinking meta skills and applied to education and industry. And I travelled the world for a year. Remember, you're allowed to travel. Remember, travel. Although it was a bit tiring doing 200,000 miles in 2 years. I now work for Microsoft, and my job is to help schools and organisations like multi-academy trusts and local authorities to actually use what they have. So it's called a customer success manager. And Microsoft loves acronyms. So I'm a CSM. I only found out what CSM meant about 3 weeks ago. But I'm a CSM, I'm a customer success manager, working with schools. Originally Scotland and the north of England, now the whole of Europe with English-speaking schools.
Wow, that's some impressive CV, Ian. And if people want to find you and connect with you, they can do that on Twitter. I've just put your Twitter up there.
Yeah, more than welcome on LinkedIn as well. It's quite a common one. In fact, the LinkedIn profile is in my Twitter profile.
Oh, excellent. So I'm just going to take that out so it's not a distraction. And I thought that it'd be really good, given where you are in the industry at the moment, and we're thinking, about reflecting on how the industries and education to that extent are responding through a really challenging time at the moment. For those of you that might be watching, we're just entered into lockdown number 2. Things aren't looking great, but there's certainly a spirit that people are really kind of keeping on going. So it'd be really interesting to hear from your perspective how you think, people are responding to the challenges, and what have you seen?
So I think what's really interesting is expectations have changed. So I work with schools, that K-12, as the Americans call it, kindergarten to year 12 for them, primary and secondary, HE and FE a little bit, but not so much. And what I've noticed is there's been a cultural change. So previously, they would expect me to travel. I know I can't now. They would expect me to travel. They'd expect me to join them, have a face-to-face meeting, even for an hour, and they'd be expected to travel 3 or 4 hours to get an hour's meeting. I think now they can go, you know what, we don't need to see face-to-face. The action can be face-to-face when we're allowed to do that. And that's a massive cultural change. Previously, when I worked with Notosh, the demand was there. You had to go. I had to fly to Sofia, Bulgaria, Mexico City. And now they're going, no, we have realized that we have to change. And I think that's the positive that we're starting to pull out. That people are now open to that organizational change, that individual applying things. Not everyone.
Yeah.
But the organizations are saying, no, we need to reflect on where we're going. In fact, my education team this morning had a 2-hour meeting discussing exactly that. Where are we going next? How are we going to work with our customers? What do our customers expect from us? And it's about expectations. The downside of being almost on demand now is a big challenge, in finding time for yourself to reflect and change and say, I need a bit of space here, and flagging that up that actually, no, I'm not on demand.
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, it's been really interesting because having worked in technology, particularly in education, and trying to implement new technologies and ways of working, for years we had people that said, I don't do tech, and didn't get on board. And it was almost like it was an excuse to say, turning this ship around is like turning an oil tanker, Louise. It's going to take a long time to implement technology. And then, of course, COVID came along, and it was like the boot in the backside, really, where people had to all get on board. And I think for me, that's been one of the metaphors of this project. If you do get everyone on board, you can make some big changes happen within a short space of time.
Absolutely. There's a great Scottish educational word called the hufty.
The hufty.
They have to do it. They have to do it. And it's even you walk into, maybe it's a West Scotland thing, but you walk into a school and a head teacher will give you an instruction. Is this a hufty? And yes, it is a great word. It catches
So we're here to talk about the meta skills today, and this is really interesting because meta skills, soft skills, skills 4.0 have been around the last few years, this kind of fourth revolution. And I just want to introduce people to the SDS paper, and this has been around a couple of years as well. And this for me was probably one of the best examples of a paper that I saw that set out what meta skills were. I've put the link on the website, so do go and have a look at the SDS paper, which was all about what are the skills we need to manage them now, connect with the world, and create our own change. And we've all seen these skills having to be deployed over the last few months or year really now. So I guess meta skills to me, and people often want to quantify them because they're like this kind of big grey space. For me, meta skills or skills 4.0 or soft skills were kind of like the skills that are hidden. You don't often see them. So meta actually is a word that we would describe like metadata. It's the information that's hidden behind an image, where it was taken, when it was taken, what camera it might have been taken on. That's all metadata. It might be the hidden hashtags, if you like. So for me, meta skills are the essence, the building blocks of the way that we operate, but they're meta because they're hidden. So it doesn't mean they're less important. It means that they're more important in terms of being building blocks of how we interact, how we live, learn and work. So Ian, over to you. What are meta skills to you? What do they mean to you?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Louise. It's that hidden part that goes behind it. There's real practical impact that goes with that. And I'm going to use an analogy. So I was trained as an engineer, and training is different from education. So if you're trained on an engine, in a particular engine, you focus on that engine, you see how that particular engine, what you know when every nut and bolt goes, you are an expert on that engine. When you're shifting over to a different engine or even a different type of mechanical device, you may struggle. You may get on, but you will struggle to begin with. If you actually have a better understanding of the workings of how engines work, the meta information around that engine, of how the concept of it all works, you can then apply those skills much more effectively, much better. You can approach the issue, the problem, and work on that in a much better way because you understand why it's doing what it's doing, not just the how. And there's a fantastic stuff around how-to videos. There's lots of stuff around how-to videos at the moment, how to do this, how to use this tool, how to do that tool. We need why tools? Why are we using this one? What's the understanding behind that?
Excellent. So I thought it would be quite fun. And I've put together a resource, which is, again, available on the website. And it's an interactive image where you can click on these squares and it pops up with a whole bunch of resources to help people become familiar with what the skills are. So that's what the 12 meta skills look like. And I'm just going to pop that back onto the screen there so you can see it. So we've got 12 meta skills ranging from focusing, integrity, adapting, initiative, communicating, feeling, collaborating, leading, curiosity, creativity, sense making, and lastly, critical thinking. So my next question to you is, Ian, if you had to pick 1, 2, or if you're really good, I'll let you have 3, what would be your top 3 skills out of those 12 meta skills that you think are rising to the top of your kind of wish list of skills if you had them?
Oh, tough questions. They're all so important. For my personal bias, it's the emotional stuff that makes things better. So understanding the feeling, the communications, the leading, the creativity, possibly that's 4th one in there. Looking into 3, feeling and collaboration to me is how you build a bigger, better world in the future. You work with other people. You don't beat them into doing it. You work with them, understand their feelings, where they're coming from, and build better beyond that, for me.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because certainly we're seeing now that employers are recognizing that these skills are important and they're looking for these skills when they recruit people rather than the kind of knowledge-based qualifications, because obviously knowledge is something that can be supplemented with other types of content, whether it's searching online, but it's actually the skills that underpin that knowledge that are going to make the difference. So for me, I think it's really difficult to quantify on an exam or a CV the critical thinking, the ability to kind of look at something sideways and say, well, is that right? Is it real? Is it real information? Is it fake news? But what does that button do? Why does that button do what it is? And being able to pull that information together. So I would probably group critical thinking. I would probably look at creativity and curiosity as a really nice bundle of skills. And I don't think any of these skills exist independently of each other. But certainly that's one skill that we can reward in our employees and our students when they're actually coming to us and saying, do you know what, I've got an idea. And we're not saying, we don't want to listen to your ideas. We know that ideas come from everywhere in the organization, and someone might just have a unique perspective that could make a whole heap of difference to our working environment and even productivity. So those are the ones that I would probably choose. This is an interactive image, as I've said, so people will be able to go and click in and explore those a little bit further. And before we finish, and I do have one last question, I just wanted to really bring to everyone's attention, where we are at now. I know that people are really worried about people missing out on education at the moment. They're worried about their staff missing out on being at work because of furlough, and they're worried that they might become de-skilled. They might not be getting the education that they need. And I just love this quote from Stephen Heppell, and hopefully you can read this on the screen. You can go directly to Stephen's Twitter. But he's making this point that it's a real time that we started celebrating our golden COVID generation on the back of the challenges that they are finding. We will see a whole new generation of inventors, musicians, designers, politicians who are going to use those critical skills and go beyond the obvious to create the extraordinary. And I just think that's a really nice way to put those skills into focus. So obviously education is at a critical time at the moment. Exams have been scrapped. What do you think will happen next in terms of a bit of a shift so that employers are not realizing that they have to rely on skills-based higher standards, maybe even degrees, and how can they look a bit further into looking beyond those and seeing the person? So my first question is, how do you think education will change as a result of now to have more of a skills focus?
I think it's been forced to change by the cancelling of exams. They're now reflecting on what people are doing in school now and collecting evidence around that, but it's still explicit evidence. I think they need to shift the ownership of that collection from the teacher down to the student, to the pupil, who then collects that evidence on an ongoing basis and expresses that in some ways.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I've seen some universities in the States respond in a wonderful way, where they've been creating interactive resumes where students are sharing video clips of themselves talking about something they know and love, a video clip of them talking about the teamwork they've displayed or how they've collaborated with their colleagues at school on a project, and they've all been working remotely and they can't actually get into the university. So those interactive resumes are going to be much more engaging for an employer and help that young person to stand out. So yeah, there are going to be ways in which we can help young people to exemplify these, but it's going to be an interesting time for sure.
It certainly is. And in fact, I've been involved in several projects, including with the SQA previously, investigating digital badging. And actually, everybody talks about the Scouts having badges and the Boys Brigade having badges.
I was a brownie.
You were a brownie. There you go. You're sure you got your badges somewhere where you collect those skills. Well, actually, digital badges work in the same way, except inside the metadata inside that badge contains the evidence of how you got that standard. So it's not just that simple click, oh, they've got a badge, that's very good. How did they get that badge? Click. It may well be a written paper, but there'll be a scan of that written paper inside there. There'll be a video. I can do this skill because here's me doing it. Yeah. Evidence, video evidence, that multimedia use of I keep saying the word evidence, of the skills that go forward with that, collecting it through, pulling it through, and saying, no, this is what I can do. And here's my personal statement that show my values that go with that. So I think that becomes really important.
Yeah, and I think at a time when people are looking to retrain, people are looking for new opportunities, maybe a shift in career because of what's happened over the last year, that it's going to be really important that the industry responds in helping people to demonstrate these skills as well. So it'll be a really interesting times going forward. Mm-hmm. So Ian, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you for the last 20 minutes. I've really enjoyed hearing all of your perspectives. So as we mentioned, if people want to get in touch with you, they can go to your Twitter account, Ian Stuart 66. For this actual project, we have a fantastic website. All of the resources that I mentioned are going to be available on our website, so please do go over to there and you can see them. We also have our own Twitter page at The Critical ENG. The Critical Engineer was too long. The Critical ENG sounds a bit street. We've also got our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Critical Engineer. YouTube account, and all of our videos are going to be there. We are making sure that these are going to be available on demand for any employers or people in education to watch. And we've also got our LinkedIn organization page as well. So do have a look at that. So it's just left from me to say thanks ever so much, Ian. On behalf of West College Scotland, the Critical Engineer Project, it's been a joy to speak to you. Keep safe and well, and I know that you'll be in touch with us, and hopefully we'll do some more video fireside chats together.
Very enjoyable, Louise. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Excellent. Ended.